All right. Well, welcome everyone to our webinar on the box tree moth, Virginia's newest insect pest. We've had some alerts that it has been spotted not only in Virginia, but in West Virginia and Maryland. And so we want to make sure that everyone is prepared and knows the latest research methods, treatment measures, and what to do if you spot this invasive pest. So we've got today David Gianino with VDACS and Dr. Alejandro Del-Pozo from Hampton Roads AREC, and we are grateful for their time. So I'm going to turn things over to David, and we'll go from there.
Great. Thanks, Katie. Yes, so good morning, everybody. My name is David Gianino. I'm the program manager for the Office of Plant Industry Services here at VDACS, and I oversee our invasive species trapping and invasive species management programs from the Virginia Department of Agriculture's perspective. And I wanted to update everybody on the news and what we have found with box tree moth in Virginia, and then what we're planning on doing. So as I go forward, I've got a PowerPoint. I'll go through the slides and provide as much information on the detections here in Virginia as I can. So I want to kind of focus on the history. How did we hear about box tree moth in the nearby area? Give you the results from our blitz survey that we did up in Northern Virginia, kind of summarize the detections that we have found, go over what our response plan will be for box tree moth, what you all as nurseries can start doing to prepare, and then what a potential quarantine in the future is going to look like. So I'm going to cover kind of those topics kind of broadly through today's talk. So just before I get started into kind of more localized information on BTM, where is box tree moth nationally? So before the detections in June, it was in 6 states: New York, Ohio, Michigan, Massachusetts, Delaware, and Pennsylvania. And then so far in 2025, it has been confirmed in West Virginia, Maryland. Obviously, we're talking about Virginia today too, but also Kentucky is the newest state. That happened a couple of weeks, actually a week and a half ago. So what kind of alerted us here at VDACS to box tree moth in the area? It was communicated from the West Virginia Department of Agriculture that they had found and confirmed box tree moth at a resort community up near Hedgesville, West Virginia, about 14 miles from the Virginia border. It was reported to the West Virginia USDA staff originally from the maintenance person who works on the plants there on the grounds, and they noticed that something was wrong with boxwood plants. And as it turns out, it was getting consumed by box tree moth, and they had found webbing and frass and caterpillar. Actually, they had found pupa at the time. They have since found caterpillars in the environment there as well. So that kind of put us on high alert, and then we started in the background planning a survey of that area. If you look here, that line is the Virginia border with West Virginia, so our plan was to survey in that area. But then pretty quickly, right before our blitz survey, we heard that there was another detection about 2 miles north. So this was the initial detection right here in Berkeley County, and then there was confirmation of another box tree moth up here in Morgan County, and it was on private property on another boxwood that was in the landscape. So it was neither one of these were from imports of boxwood plants. They were just found on the plants in the environment, which is not great. So right before our blitz survey, basically the Friday before we were going up to Clarke and Loudoun County and Frederick County to start surveying, we got notice from the Maryland Department of Agriculture, and they had said that they found boxwood tree moth or box tree moth on boxwood plants. These were on established boxwoods at Fort Frederick State Park, which is about 5 miles from that initial find in West Virginia. So for those that know, box tree moth can fly, several miles a year. And so with this type of spread, it seems apparent that box tree moth has been in that area for at least a year, if not longer, just due to the distance between those positive points. And so that happened in July 11th, and our survey was actually planned for the week immediately following that, so the 14th through the 18th. So all of those things combined, plus what is at risk here in Virginia, really, again, set us on high alert. and we got out there to do a survey because we understand and recognize that there are a lot of nurseries that produce boxwoods here in Virginia. And we also have a lot of historic and natural resources. For instance, historic gardens like Williamsburg, Mount Vernon, Monticello, just to name a few. A lot of historical boxwood plantings, traditional gardens. And we also have the public gardens, Lewis Ginter Botanical Gardens, and then we've got a couple more botanical gardens in the southeastern part of the state that grow lots of boxwoods and have these beautiful gardens. And then lastly, just a lot of homeowners grow and raise and have boxwoods on their properties. And so they're a prized garden plant and landscape plant that we want to make sure that we're trying our best to protect. And so this has got us all concerned about box tree moth and if it's in Virginia. And so that's why we really jumped out to try and get in front of this. So just to quickly summarize our Blitz survey results, we had 8 staff up in Frederick, Clarke, and Loudoun counties performing 132 surveys. There were 38 sites we didn't get to, but we looked at residential locations, so private property, we looked at businesses, we looked at retail nurseries, and then we looked at places like churches and graveyards, places where we know that there's longstanding boxwood plantings. So we put traps up in this area too, about 15 to 20 traps dispersed throughout this kind of area where you see these green, yellow, and orange points. And as you can tell, we really tried to focus along the border between West Virginia and Virginia so that we were trying to capture where is it if it's in the state. Try to kind of account for that natural spread. So what you see on the map are properties that we have designated as high risk for boxwoods. Just based on Google Earth and Google Maps from driving around, what plants look and appear to be boxwoods. There's a lot of farmland in this area, so it's kind of difficult to try and find places that had boxwood plants. So pretty much this whole area is large farms, and so we had to kind of find places that were available. But a green site is one that we surveyed, found boxwoods, and did not find evidence of box tree moth. A yellow is we did not get to that site yet, but it's still a risk and a high priority for us. And then an orange site is we either found something suspect like frass, webbing, pupa, casings, things where we didn't find the actual moth, but we thought we found the moth, or we found a life stage. And so we marked it as suspect until we could get it confirmed. But ultimately, what I'm going to do is take away all the negative data and show there are 3 sites where we actually found box tree moth, and then 1 site where we found evidence of box tree moth. So a total of 4 sites so far. I'll go over them each individually, but these were all from visual inspections. Since that time, we have not caught any adult moths in traps in these areas, but we have gone back and found more again. But anyway, we did find box tree moth here in Virginia. The 3 locations in Clarke are Summit Point Ranch, which is almost a mile from the West Virginia border. It's an individual farm, independently owned by a local family who lives on the property and farms it as well. But they have an alley of boxwood plants, as you can see up their driveway, and about 8 of those had box tree moth pupa on them. Very small infestations, probably about the size of my hand is all that we could find for evidence. So that would be frass, webbing, feeding damage. So it's very, very small, very, very young infestation that we can tell. Over here, the next one is Rosemont Historic Manor. So it's a historic wedding venue and kind of a historic landmark for the town of Berryville. We found 1 pupa here on this shrub near the building, and then a few other pupa throughout on other different boxwood plants. But again, 1 pupa here and there, very, very small levels of damage. So we think we have found it very early. This one here on the bottom left is a private residence that's very close to the Summit Point Ranch. And again, we found evidence here. We found what appeared to be webbing, frass, and feeding damage, but we could not find a pupa. But we're still going to consider it a positive because nothing makes the same frass and webbing like box tree moth on those plants. And then one population was found in, or one pupa was found in Loudoun County at a vineyard who have landscaped boxwood plants right out front. They don't have any boxwoods near their actual vineyard. It seems to be kind of a vast ocean with a couple of island boxwoods, if you will. So there are no other boxwoods in this area. So we found one pupa here on this right-hand side. And so we do plan to go back and treat all those. And since that time, we've been back to this site 2 or 3 more times and not found any life stages, but just because we didn't find it doesn't mean it's not there. So we're gonna definitely go back and treat that. And I'll get to that in just a few minutes. I wanted to quickly show what we found. So again, a very small amount of webbing and frass, very, very limited feeding damage, but there it is right there in the middle is that pupa right underneath those fingers. And so kind of hard to see, but at the same time, very easy to identify once you find it. And it's a very, very easily to identify pupa. Again, and then we placed a trap here next to it to catch any sort of adult moths, but we have not yet caught any adult moths. But here is another example of what that pupa looks like. You have to kind of pull that foliage back to look within the webbing and not necessarily in the webbing, but near it, because that's where the pupa tend to be. So now that we found it in Virginia, what is our plan? Luckily, we do have invasive species money that was provided to us and appropriated to the agency by the General Assembly for the fiscal year 26. So shout out to the General Assembly for providing that funding, because it's going to really set us up to respond like we've never been able to respond before to a new pest. We developed back in 2023 when we heard that box tree moth was kind of on the move and it was in the US. We developed a pest-specific emergency action response plan. So it's just essentially an internal guide that says, what do we do when we find box tree moth and how do we respond? And it outlines our plan for survey, delimitation, outreach, treatment, and mobilizing to try and get a handle on the pest. So I am confident to say that we are planning to respond rapidly with intense treatment, with a goal in mind of eradicating those isolated populations. So at those 4 sites there in Virginia that I mentioned before. So I want to make it clear that West Virginia does not have the same level of funding. West Virginia does not plan to treat. And so while I am committing to, trying to eradicate those populations now, it's likely that they may come back because of natural flight, natural spread, and reinfestation. But the longer that we can try and hold it off from getting into any type of pathway and establishing, the better off I think we'll be in the long run. So good news, all sites so far have provided VDACS with permission to treat. We're going to use a variety of chemistries to avoid resistance, because this particular pest, unlike some other pests, has multiple generations per year. And so what we don't want to have happen is, as we treat, we don't want to just use the same pesticide. We want to use integrated pest management and ensure that we're not building up resistance. Even if it's only 2 or 3 generations from here on, we don't want to have any type of resistance build up. And all of the chemistries listed here are between 92 and 99% effective at killing caterpillars and eggs. So what are we planning to do on each property? Regardless of where we found it, we plan to treat all boxwoods found on that property. So we do have a contractor. They actually are starting treatment tomorrow. So that is a really fantastic positive. We didn't have to wait months to get a treatment contractor. We put a bid out basically the week that we found box tree moth, and finally got the contractor on board. They're going to use a hydraulic sprayer from a truck bed, and the goal is to treat to runoff. The reason we're doing that is it's a little bit more intensive than we have for other programs, but it's because, as you see with the webbing in this picture, the caterpillars can try to hide. They can kind of get into areas which is a little bit more difficult for surface contact pesticides. So the plan is to treat heavy and to treat to run off, so that the pesticides can make it to all types of areas on that shrub, on the boxwood plants, and make sure that they come into contact with that pesticide. As I mentioned, we're going to rotate through those. We want to prevent any type of resistance buildup. But as you see here, we are in the overlapping generation stage. And so we have seen caterpillars out there now. So they should be about 4th or 5th instar right now, which means they're about halfway to pupating again. So we are hoping to get that treatment on, like I said, tomorrow on all the shrubs, all the boxwood plants in the area of those 4 sites. But because they can have multiple generations a year and Virginia is the farthest south location, we expect that there's likely to be another generation, if not 2. Depending on how warm it is and how long we have a warm summer, we might have a 3rd generation here in Virginia. So our plan is to treat with conventional pesticides every 14 days. So every 2 weeks, because those chemistries, the conventional chemistries have a residual of about 14 days. And so we want to make sure that if any caterpillars that don't get immediately hit with the pesticide, that they would crawl over the pesticide and succumb to it then. As I mentioned, they're going to start trapping tomorrow. We've got multiple things happening. We did on one of the sites at Rosemont, we found another adult. So that was yesterday. So we do have multiple life stages happening right now. And then in between the 2 weeks, our plan is to use I'm trying to think of the biopesticide. So either Bacillus thuringiensis or spinosad every alternating week. And the reason why is if something comes out, misses the pesticide, or if we missed a spot, then perhaps what we can do is also cover the leaves with, this biopesticide that can kill caterpillars when they're feeding. So that's what we're hoping to do is go in really aggressive, light up these plants with pesticides and biopesticides to ensure that we've covered all of our available alternatives and opportunities to kill the box tree moth. If we were to find any additional properties during this treatment program, they're going to be added into it immediately. And let's say we find a new property that has caterpillars, we're going to go ahead and start treating. If it's a pupa, we're going to maybe wait until we get more caterpillars because those pesticides are most effective on caterpillars. So we don't want to waste product. We don't want to apply when it's not the right stage or the right time, but we are going to get them into the program as well. And again, all this is going to be funded with state appropriated funds. So we've not had the ability to do that before. So we're really excited, looking forward to being able to respond within a month of a detection. I did want to make a note, if we do find it in a nursery or a retail facility, we're going to stop sale those plants until we establish a compliance agreement with that either nursery or retail establishment. And I did want to say that we have provided a compliance agreement training already about what that compliance agreement looks like and how individuals can kind of get prepared for a compliance agreement. So that should be on VNLA's website, and maybe Katie will add a link or maybe send a reminder out. But we've done a training on that, and my staff here at VDACS can answer any questions about the compliance agreement as well. So
Great.
kind of
I'll definitely add a link to that so that everyone can access that.
Perfect. So I did want to spend just a few moments, and maybe Alejandro will touch on more of this, but what can nurseries and retail establishments, what can y'all start to kind of prepare to do? The first and foremost is learn to identify box tree moth and learn what the damage looks like, because it is unique. It's a little hard to find, and so sometimes it can be hidden within boxwood plants. And to make sure that your staff are trained on how to ID the insect as well. There's a really great diagnostic. It's an online website through Ohio State University about box tree moth and how to identify it. And I'm sure Alejandro might even touch on, what resources are available at Virginia Tech as well. The other recommendation that I have is know your plant protection inspector's number. I've added a link to our program map. And so if you're a nursery and you're in that area and you suspect something, then call your plant protection inspector here at VDACS, and they can come out and diagnose and give you a real quick rundown. And if you see any sort of suspicious feeding or evidence of box tree moth, we want to know immediately. So please contact us. Ensure that you have appropriate pesticides on hand. There's more than what I listed earlier. So I would check out the recommendation. I believe Virginia Tech actually has a handout on what products are available. Alejandro, correct me if I'm wrong. But I believe there's a list of available pesticides to treat on their website. I would add box tree moth to scouting and trapping regimen. That's going to be part of the compliance agreement requirement. So if you can get the jump on that now and be prepared, ready to go, then it will be a lot easier to incorporate that in and qualify for the compliance agreement. And then lastly, I would say know your suppliers and ensure their location if they are out of state, because some producers are shipping boxwoods from quarantined areas. They do have compliance agreements, and if they don't have a compliance agreement, they need to get one. And so just be aware of where you're possibly getting material from other parts of the country. And then lastly, just review the compliance agreement requirements. I've added a link directly to the compliance agreement template. And then again, we've done a training webinar as well that is posted on VNLA's webpage. And I say all this to kind of let people know that at some point, if we are unsuccessful at eradicating it, now I will say we're the first state to try to treat it like this and to try and eradicate it. Most states have just incorporated it into a program because they didn't have state funding. But there's always a possibility that we cannot eradicate it from Virginia and from the locations where it's found. And so if that's the case, and that's just the map, sorry, I got a little too ahead of myself here. But if that's the case, this is a federally regulated plant pest. And so USDA APHIS PPQ regulates box tree moth, and they will enact a quarantine unless populations can be treated and eradicated. So as I mentioned, there is an issue because West Virginia will not treat and is not planning on treating. So they have an extant population right across the border. And so it might be a situation where even if we were to eradicate it, we might have blow over the next season, or, it might be a continual battle of us trying to treat box tree moth in that area until the USDA at some point says, you know what, it's too close, there's too many populations, we're going to have to quarantine. So again, if we can't eradicate it and can't keep it out, what that would look like is USDA and VDACS would work together to have a quarantine for the counties where it's found. And so if we can't eradicate it from Clarke and Loudoun, then there would be a federal quarantine for those counties. And what that quarantine does is it prohibits all boxwood plants and cuttings from being moved out of the county unless they are moved under a compliance agreement. So again, I'm not going to go into too many details, but I will say that it's a pretty intense compliance agreement. It requires scouting, trapping, treatment in both production and then pre-shipment, and then inspection prior to shipment, and then a record retention requirement as well. So, and there's a notification piece. I forgot to add that here, but if you send plants to another state, then you have to notify that state. Kind of have to get with their SPRO or their version of me in their state to say, how do you want me to communicate and what information do you want? That type of stuff. So again, we've gone over that in the other training, but my office here at the Office of Plant Industry Services would administer those compliance agreements. So again, if you have questions, you can certainly reach out to us. And that's really it. I would say, Katie, if you have any questions that I could answer for the sake of the webinar, I'd be happy to, but I can also take questions from VNLA members down the road too, however you'd like to handle that.
Perfect. No, this has been wonderful information, and we really appreciate it. And I've taken some notes, so I will make sure that these links are part of the posting with the compliance agreement training. And then I'll turn it over to Alejandro to comment more about the Virginia Tech resources on products and pesticides, and the research that you're doing, and anything else that our members can do to make sure that we're doing our best effort to keep this all contained.
Thank you. The first thing, David, thank you, and thank you the office. As you pointed out, this is a first. Box tree moth hasn't been aggressively handled as overall, and Virginia is pausing or presenting an example of. I also understand your concern about the being blown and fly over. That is a continuation of the risk, but needless to say, you guys having the lead the leadership to do all this is really, really, benefits the industry. So we're really thankful for that. So first, I want to open that saying that that's a that's a very big task that VDAC is doing. So we celebrate that, and we are here to help as much as we can to accomplish that. And hopefully that quarantine can be postponed as much as we can. And if not, we will work really hard with you and everybody in the industry to make it as easier for the growers. At the end, our research, the efforts from BDAC and David office and everybody is to get you guys, the members, avoid those profit losses. And Box Tree Moth, it's quite a pest, but is a boxwood doom. I remember when I joined this team with the Box Tree Moth research, Alejandro, we're done with boxwoods. Forget about it. It's boxwood blight and now Box Tree Moth. And let me tell you that we're not done. I mean, boxwoods are intrinsically a cultural plant for us. It has all these different um, goals and uses and connects with us. So boxwood, it is in the culture. So I don't think we're done with that. And I think the research and compliance agreements and all the the legal controls that we have are actually helping us to get a good control. So in terms of box tree moth research, the latest that we're doing right now is we have on the way, and I was telling David offline before we joined this webinar that I'm happy to report that we're working on a federal permit to bring box tree moth under quarantine to campus. So we would really like to understand what are the biological control agents that can be attacking box tree moth. So during my time, I've been studying these insects for the past 4 years and learning a lot. I think we have the foundations to propose science-based solutions to the growers, to anyone who's affected, homeowners and everything. Any member of the community will have this information, and we are happy to share those things. But one thing that we're really interested in, it's if I'm a homeowner, can I buy a biological control? If I'm a nursery grower, can I release beneficials? And we would like to provide those answers. So now that we're going to have a colony in quarantine, we're going to study, there's a teeny tiny parasitic wasp called trichogramma that affects the eggs. That's one of the key pests. You can buy those things from beneficial insectaries throughout the United States. And there is lacewings that can also be a great predator. So are these going to work? What will be the conditions? How many can we release? Alejandro, that seems really complicated. But honestly, if we really, really would like to implement an integrated pest management, we have to think about all the different approaches that we can do. David pointed out in his presentations, we do have chemicals that we've been testing. One thing that I can say from our research is that chlorantraniliprole, a celebring, is one of the best chemicals that provides some sort of protection and also a long-term protection. Here's the thing. We're going to be looking into 2 double E's. There are few products that have label for box tree moth. So I want nursery growers and homeowners or anyone who's going to be looking for this is to make sure that box tree moth is reflected into the 2 double E label, which means it's in annex to the main label. So for example, javelin, it's a Bacillus thuringiensis subspecies Kurstaki, has a 2 double E for box tree moth, and it could be, as David pointed out, is one of the best chemicals that we can use. We highly recommend that anyone who wants to do a chemical control treatment to use an adjuvant. The waxy nature of the boxwood would prevent for the chemicals to stick around, so it is crucial and very important that anyone who's dealing with this wants to invest on using an adjuvant. The best adjuvant, or some of the best adjuvants that we were tried, were some of the stickers that actually they're labeled as stickers. And one of the ones that we've been using consistently is capsule. And there are a couple more. There's Attach and a couple more, but Capsule has been the one. We have a collaborator in Cornell who did several series of studies and showed that, with Capsule, we were able to improve the how the chemicals spread, how long it stays, and after overhead irrigation, it was a great set of studies. So we were incorporating Capsule as an adjuvant to our applications. Within those, we also tested mainspring, which is another diamide. We tested dinotefron, which is a neonic. They're all labeled for nurseries. And within the compliance agreement, you guys are going to be able to see those options. We do have all this summarized in a Virginia Corporate Extension publication. So I encourage anyone who's listening to this webinar to Google Virginia Box Tree Moth or Virginia Tech Box Tree Moth, and all these publications are going to pop. The recent one is from 2025, and that's where we are talking about chemicals. Again, I would like to point out that if you are selecting a chemical, has to have a nursery label, and hopefully this could have a 2EE, which is the extension for this specific pest. And new research that we are also doing, well, not new anymore, but something that was newish a year ago, is the use of mating disruption. And we were successful teaming up with USDA APHIS PPQ with the team with Greg Simmons and Ignacio Baez, that we show that mating disruption using the pheromones in high concentrations will be able to influence how box tree moth can mate and also result in the next progeny. So those two control tactics can be implemented down the road, and we have the information, we have the data that shows that they're very efficacious. The chemicals that I just mentioned and the mating disruption that I just mentioned, we are going to be adding more information on what biological control agents we can use. So that will be the third control tactic. So overall, what I would like to point out, my participation to the webinar is that please do not hesitate to reach out. Talk to your local extension agent, your local extension office. Contact me, contact VNLA, contact VDAC. You're not alone in this. There is a community already that has been built science-based information to help overcome this issue. Now it's in Virginia. The fight it's started for us. I mean, now it's home, and I think we're ready. This is why I guess it paid off for us as Virginia Tech team, that we went to New York, every week. As David told me, like now it's closer, but hopefully we can get it eradicated. But if not, as he pointed out, we will be ready to provide, suggestions and recommendations to the growers and to the homeowners to get this under control. Last but not least, if you're a grower and if you're thinking about some sort of strategies, please do not hesitate to contact me. I already been providing some information to some of the growers that have directly contact me. So I encourage you to do that. For example, if you're thinking about placing traps, you have to make sure that you're buying a lure that is a 3 milligram lure for the box tree moth. They used to be 1 milligram. I've been assured that the 1 milligram lure, it's out of the market, but you as a consumer, as an end user for this technology, you want to ask the company that's selling you the lures that what is the concentration of the lure. It has to be 3 milligrams. We have data that shows that with 1 milligram, you can underestimate the captures of the box tree moth males. So it has to be a 3 milligram lure. And the idea is that you want to check those traps every week, and also placing those traps, if you're a grower, in your shipping or your receiving areas could be also critical. Or the pads that you are gonna hold a cargo for, say, a week or 2 weeks. In the case that pupa were sent into and then adults were closed, you want to have a trap that is going to capture that closed adults within the areas that you have hold the containment or hold those boxwoods that you are moving from out of state. You can also have, as the compliance agreement address, as many traps as you need. And the key is to show that you have zero, right? Zero, it's a good number. Zero, it's important. Like it's, if you open the trap and say, there's nothing, you have to record that. You have to show that there is a zero. And then when you go and do a visual scouting, you have to record that there is no frass, there is no defoliation. Those zeros are important. And if there is something, please let us know and we will walk you through and we will help you get that contained and give you the information, not necessarily, providing hands, but at least providing the information. How can you get contained of those? So right now, I think the critical and the last thought is being open to communication. There is a support network. We have the resources. And then as a community, we'll be able to get this under control.
Thank you so very much. And so just kind of wanted to follow up with some of the themes. So you mentioned all of the Virginia Tech publications. I know I've already circulated a link to folks who can fill out a form if they've spotted something, but I'll make sure that this is all together when I post this webinar and in our next newsletter article. So it's all one-stop shopping, if you will, for everyone. So it looks like just being prepared, making sure you know how to ID, train your staff. You've got all your resources ready to go. So you're familiar with products, you've got them available to use. You've got familiar with a compliance agreement if that comes. And we're just communicating with Alejandro, with VDACS, with the plant inspectors, kind of everyone to make sure that we've got the best communication going as to what we see.
Where this pest is a little bit unique, as Alejandro kind of laid out really nicely. There are things ready to go, and if you find it in your nursery, right, don't try to keep it a secret. And the reason why is because we can help. We actually can help this time with, facilitating additional trade. It might require a couple extra steps, but this is one where we're being pretty forward on where it is, and there's been a lot of research. There's already a lot of products available. This is not one where we have to sit back and freak out and expect everything to come to a screeching halt. The whole purpose of the compliance agreement is to facilitate safe trade, and all the states got together, approved this compliance agreement. Everyone recognizes that it's not a zero risk compliance agreement, but it is a mitigating risk compliance agreement. And so Alejandro laid it out really nicely. We are here to help, and we really are a resource, a wealth of knowledge. And we've got, as Alejandro mentioned, 4 years in hard routine research and involvement with other states. So Alejandro's seen what other states have and haven't done and where they've had successes. So I think they're going to be really set up in a much better way than other states that had to respond to Box Tree Moth. So kind of not being the first is good, because it showed us what needs to happen and how to facilitate those types of discussions with growers. And, I just want to reiterate that we are taking, even though we're not doing an immediate quarantine, we are taking aggressive steps with private property to try and protect industry. And so we really do want to be as forward and as intense as we can while we have the resources available, and we've got the support from the commissioner to do that as well. So
great point, David. As you showed in your maps where you've initially spotted these, our members should definitely be in communication with their neighbors and with folks in the area who may not be in the nursery industry, but let them know that if they do have boxwoods or on their property, that they need to keep an eye out for it. So I think communication is definitely the key, because then that way we'll have the earliest detection, and then you can put all of your resources toward it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. So, well, really thank y'all for your time, and for VNLA members who watch this whenever is convenient for you. Please make sure that you email Katie, Katie @vnla.org if you've got questions. I'll also post contact information for Alejandro and for David and VDACS, so that you can make sure to direct. But if there are other topics or specific questions you have on the box tree moth, please let us know. I know that y'all are gracious with your time and are very willing to put together other webinars to provide more resources and updates. And while our next industry gathering won't be until January of 2026 in Mance, since we just had our field day, we will continue to send articles and record these webinars to make sure that we reach everyone and we pass along this information.
Great. Awesome. Yeah. And anything, if there's some more additional information, if I can, give another PowerPoint or do a direct Q&A, I'm happy to do that. So just let me know what members want, Katie.
Perfect. I appreciate that.
And same. I think the industry has a great approach. We're being open as we could be. There are resources. I think we're ready. We're ready to tackle this, head first, and we're going to be successful. So anything that we can help. And I love the idea that VNLA will be a centralized web. So Katie, thank you for all that effort. I think that is crucial. Right now, it's all scattered. So if that gets into one centralized, that is phenomenal. And I think that's a great idea. It's going to serve the members really well.